My name is Elena Morrison, and I've mastered the art of being invisible in plain sight. The invitation arrived on cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing, my sister Madison's wedding shower at the Ritz-Carlton, cocktail attire requested. It read in elegant script. I almost laughed. They knew exactly what that meant for me. I stood in my studio apartment, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The navy dress from Goodwill fit well enough, and my grandmother's pearl earrings added a touch of elegance, but I knew what they'd see, the same Elena who'd always been just a little less. The shower was everything Madison had dreamed of. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in silk. 50 of her closest friends and family members sipped champagne and nibbled on caviar canapés. I slipped in quietly, hoping to find a corner where I could disappear. Elena, my cousin Sarah's voice carried across the room. You made it. We weren't sure you could take time off work. The conversations around me dimmed as heads turned. I felt the familiar weight of their judgment, the careful way they chose their words around me, the spinster sister, the one who never quite figured it out. Of course she's here. Madison swept over in her designer dress. All smiles for the cameras. Elena wouldn't miss this for the world. She's been so supportive, even offering to help with the flowers. She turned to the group. She's always been so practical. Practical, their favorite word for me. It meant cheap, small, forgettable. I'd learned to accept it years ago, after college, while Madison landed a job at a prestigious PR firm and married her way into society circles. I'd quietly disappeared into the background. They assumed I was struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, too proud to ask for help. They weren't entirely wrong about the pride part. Are you still doing that computer thing? Asked my Aunt Linda, as if technology was some obscure hobby. Something like that, I smiled, taking a sip of the house champagne. What they didn't know was that computer thing had started in my cramped apartment 7 years ago. Lines of code that became an algorithm that became a platform that revolutionized how luxury hotels managed their inventory worldwide. What they didn't know was that I'd sold that platform to a consortium of hotel chains for $47 million last year. What they didn't know was that I owned the penthouse suite 6 floors above their heads. Oh, Elena, Madison's future mother-in-law, Mrs. Ashford, approached with that particular smile wealthy women reserve for the less fortunate. I heard you're between jobs again? Not exactly, I said quietly. Well, if you ever need references, I know people, administrative work, perhaps? You always seemed so organized. I nodded politely, watching Madison pose for photos with her bridesmaids, all perfectly coiffed, all perfectly placed in their perfectly ordered world, a world where I'd always been the asterisk, the sister who tried, but never quite succeeded. The waiter appeared at my elbow, young and nervous. Excuse me, miss? Yes? There's been a mix-up with the champagne service. This was meant for you. He held out a bottle I recognized immediately, Armand de Brignac Ace of Spades, the $50,000 bottle, compliments of the penthouse suite. The room went silent. Forks stopped midway to mouths. Conversations died mid-sentence. I looked at the bottle, then at the waiter's confused face. I think there's been a mistake. No miss. The order was very specific. Elena Morrison, penthouse suite guest. Madison's laugh was sharp, brittle. That's impossible. Elena doesn't know anyone in the penthouse. Mrs. Ashford leaned forward. Who exactly is sending this? The waiter checked his tablet. The reservation shows E. Morrison, penthouse suite 5007. She's, oh. His face went pale as he looked between me and the screen. She's the one who ordered it. The silence stretched like a taut wire. I could feel 50 pairs of eyes dissecting me, recalculating everything they thought they knew. There must be some mistake, Madison said again, but her voice had lost its confidence. I stood slowly, setting down my glass. Actually, there's no mistake. I turned to the waiter. Thank you, James. Please send my regards to the concierge. Of course, Miss Morrison. Will you be returning to your suite tonight? Yes. I have some calls to make to Tokyo. The time difference. You know, I could have explained then. Could have told them about the late nights coding, the failed prototypes, the investors who initially laughed at a woman with no connections pitching hotel software. Could have mentioned the second company I'd quietly launched, or the third one that had gone public last month. Instead, I picked up my purse. This was lovely, Madison. Thank you for including me. Elena, wait, but I was already walking toward the door. The hallway felt different as I walked toward the elevator, lighter somehow. I pressed the button for the penthouse floor, the one that required a special key card, my key card. The elevator climbed silently, and I watched the numbers tick by, 15, 16, 17. My phone buzzed. A text from Madison, "Is this real?" Then another from Sarah, "OMG Elena, call me." Then my mother, "Why didn't you tell us?" I turned the phone face down and watched the city lights spread out below as the elevator climbed higher. The penthouse doors opened to reveal floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that stretched to the horizon. I kicked off my thrift store heels and poured myself a glass of water from the kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd eaten takeout while building my first prototype. I'd bought this place 2 years ago, not as a statement, but as a sanctuary, somewhere I could exist without explanation, without the weight of their expectations and limitations. The truth was, I'd tried to tell them. After the first company sold, I'd called Madison to share the news. She'd been in the middle of planning her engagement party and brushed me off. "That's nice, Elena, we'll catch up later." Later never came. I'd sent my parents a check for their mortgage last Christmas, and signed, through my lawyer. They'd assumed it was from Madison's fiancé's family. When I tried to correct them, my mother had patted my hand and said, "Elena, you don't need to make up stories. We love you just as you are, just as I was, small, struggling, forgettable." My phone rang. "Madison." "Elena, I don't understand. The penthouse suite? The champagne? People are saying you own hotels now?" "I don't own hotels," I said, looking out at the city lights. "I created the software that helps them optimize their revenue. Most luxury chains use some version of my algorithms. Why didn't you tell us?" The question hung in the air. Why didn't I tell them? Because I'd learned that my victories were met with skepticism, my successes dismissed as luck or exaggeration, because I'd grown tired of making myself smaller to fit their expectations. "Would you have believed me?" I asked. The silence was answer enough. "Elena, this is incredible. We should celebrate." "Maybe we could, Madison," I interrupted gently. "I need to go. I have a board meeting in Hong Kong tomorrow." "A board meeting?" "I'm launching a new venture. Sustainable technology for emerging markets. It's going to be bigger than anything I've done before." After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my penthouse, watching the city breathe below. My phone continued to buzz with messages from relatives who'd suddenly remembered I existed, friends who wanted to catch up, acquaintances who'd heard through the grapevine and wanted to reconnect. I turned it off. The next morning, I was 30,000 feet above the Pacific, reviewing presentations for my Hong Kong investors. My assistant had managed to keep the story out of the press, but I knew it would leak eventually. The mysterious tech heiress who'd been hiding in plain sight. Let them speculate. Let them rewrite history to make themselves feel better about missing what was right in front of them. I'd spent years trying to prove my worth to people who'd already decided I had none. Now I was building something that would outlast their opinions, create jobs for thousands, and maybe change how the world thought about technology and sustainability. 3 months later, I received another cream-colored invitation, Madison's wedding. This time, the note was handwritten, "Elena, I hope you'll be there. I know I haven't been the sister you deserved, but I'd like to try to do better. Love, Madison." I looked at the invitation for a long time, then at my calendar. I had a keynote speech in Singapore that weekend, my first public appearance since the news broke about my latest venture raising $200 million. But maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to show up as myself, not the version they'd created, not the one they wanted me to be, but the one I'd become despite them. I picked up my phone and called Madison. "I'll be there," I said, "but I'm bringing a guest." "Of course. Who?" "My girlfriend, Dr. Sarah Chen. She's a brilliant environmental scientist, and she's been working with me on the new project." Another silence. Then, softly, "I'd love to meet her." "Good. And Madison?" "I'm flying us in on my plane. I hope that's okay." "Your plane?" "My company's plane. It runs on sustainable aviation fuel, part of the new initiative." After we hung up, I smiled, not because I was finally being seen, but because I was finally ready to be seen, on my own terms, in my own time. Success isn't about proving them wrong, it's about building something so undeniably real that their opinions become irrelevant. It's about finding your voice in the quiet moments, and then using it to change the world. The girl who wore thrift store clothes to her sister's wedding shower had become the woman who could buy the entire hotel, but more importantly, she'd become the woman who no longer needed to. That, I realized, was the real victory, not the money, not the recognition, not even the satisfaction of their shocked faces. It was the peace of knowing that my worth had never been theirs to determine. And it never would be again.